Hello and welcome. Good morning or good evening or whenever you're able to view this presentation. My name is Colby Anderson and I will be covering the topic of sustainability initiatives in supply chain. So here's a little look at my outline and going to run down this through y'all. So I will go over the color-coded graphic and it just kind of shows how sustainable initiatives impact supply chain. And it's just kind of a visual aid to kind of help explain it. I'll move on to the goal of sustainability initiatives and what these initiatives aim to achieve. Uh, then I will discuss the impact of sustainable initiatives on supply chain and operations, and the impact it has on companies and manufacturers. Next, I will discuss and go over some examples of some initiatives that are very common. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may not have, but a lot of companies try to incorporate these. Um, Then I'll go over the conclusion and some takeaways that I want to be taken away from this presentation. And then finally, I will open it up for questions that any of you may have. So here is the color-coded graphic, and it kind of just shows how supply chain has affected the different branches, if you will, are affected through these initiatives. So upstream and downstream suppliers are highly affected. Um, in a lot of cases, they will be. But for sustainable initiatives, absolutely, they are highly impacted. Next is the information flow. So with these initiatives, there's a lot more information that's being impacted, and so therefore that is green with the high impact there. Next is physical goods flow. With these initiatives, there's a lot more kind of hoops to jump through or steps, if you will. So physical goods flow of getting the right product to the right place, that is affected in how it's being done. Lastly is the financial flow. I'll put a moderate impact for this, and I'll kind of explain why I put it at moderate instead of high. I think it could go either way, but for me personally, I thought it was a moderate impact. So these are some of the goals that sustainability initiatives aim to achieve. So of course, it aims to reduce the environmental impact, and so companies will implement these strategies and policies and adhere to these regulatory requirements, not only legally for legal purposes, but also the impact that they have on the environment. That no one wants to have a bad carbon footprint, if you will, and so companies really try and reduce their environmental impact with these. Next is ethical and social um, kind of responsibilities as well as environmental. Um, a lot of these initiatives are in place not only for environmental reasons, but also ethical and social. Um, One that kind of comes to my mind is labor laws overseas can be drastically different than here in the States. And so companies want to make sure that they're not only environmentally being responsible, but also ethically in how they receive their goods and how they get the right product to the right place. Lastly, is increase brand loyalty. So a lot of these initiatives help companies and manufacturers in their operations um, to increase brand loyalty through consumers. A lot of consumers are getting a lot more conscious now of how companies are, how they're manufacturing, their operations, their practices, and so there's a lot more spotlight on companies to be more sustainable and be more ethically responsible. So this slide just kind of talks about there's just a few percentages that these sustainable initiatives have like in the impact. So waste reduction with these sustainable initiatives and companies that are incorporating these, there's a waste reduction of 15 to 25%. So this could be anything from the materials that your product is shipped in, or just overall any resources that are used along kind of the supply chain circle and the journey of their products. And so, circling back around, I'm talking about the financial flow. With these sustainable initiatives, there is a high upfront cost. So I put it at a moderate impact, but because there is a high upfront cost to incorporate these and to change practices, which many businesses and companies are having to do now, because consumers are much more conscious and they want to increase their competitiveness in the market. I put it at a moderate because there's a lot of long-term expense savings. Companies that implement these sustainable initiatives, they kind of get a little kickback on the back end. There's a lot more savings in the long run, but with the upfront costs, I put it at a moderate level. And then lastly, the consumer preference. This number is very high. 78% of consumers are conscious of who they are who they're buying from and the practices that a company partakes in and how they get their product to the right place. So consumers are much more conscious of that, and it matters if a company is green and sustainable, and these initiatives are implemented and they're adhering to regulatory requirements. So here are some examples of sustainable initiatives. Um, the LEED certification, leadership in energy and environmental design. So this kind of talks about how a company is the overall kind of the environmental impact that they're leaving on this world. This can be from water conservation to energy, how they're using these resources, the amount of resources they're using, and the environmental impact that they are having. Um, Next is the extended producer responsibility. So this is a little bit more of after the product has been delivered to the right place. Um, Kind of the afterlife of their product. Is it, you know, does it have a lot of waste? Is it creating a negative environmental impact on the back end after it is out of their hands, essentially? GSCM is Green Supply Chain Management. Overall, just their practices. Are they green? Are they ethically? Are they responsible? And this kind of ties back into a little bit of environmental as well. And then ISO 14000 and 14001, more commonly 14001, but this is an internationally recognized EMS or environmental management system. So a lot of companies will adhere to this, and this is a big kind of celebratory thing that companies, once they get certified with this, they'll stamp it on everything and let the consumers know um, that they are ISO 14000, 14001, and many consumers recognize this and particularly look out for this. So this is a good sustainable initiative, and it does have an impact, and it is noticed by consumers. Finally, here's just some key takeaways in conclusion. So with these sustainable initiatives, the environmental impact is reduced. In that chart, you can kind of follow through it and see how the different areas of supply chain, um, how these initiatives will impact those. Another takeaway is long-term savings for companies. The upfront cost can be pretty daunting to companies, and so, but it is worth the investment to get certified in these areas and be more green and incorporate these initiatives not only for regulatory requirements, whether that's legal or not, but also just to reduce the environmental impact. Um, and again, just to touch on it again, consumers are really strongly looking at companies and their practices. Are they adhering to these requirements? Are they ethically responsible? Are they creating harm to our environment? And so consumers are looking at this a lot, and so companies that do implement these are much more preferred, and they're much more competitive in their markets. All right, so kind of concludes my presentation, but you can feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you may have. Um, that email right there, that's the best way to reach me, and I will get back to you as quick as I can with any questions that any of you may have. Here are my references. I got my information, and thank you. I appreciate y'all viewing my presentation, and I hope you guys learned something.